back. If you have just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television. A reminder of our top stories. Police arraigned 6 suspects before a magistrate court over the killings of at least 33 persons in Benue communities. As concerns over insecurity mount across Nigeria, Inspector General of Police gives assurance of adequate plans to secure all parts of the nation. Minister of State for Petroleum insists fuel price increase is not on the agenda of the Buhari administration as PDP challenges the APC-led federal government on subsidy. And at least 37 persons are killed following landslides and flooding in the capital of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, for more on our top stories and others, please visit our website, channelstv.com and youtube.com/channelsweb. Also, please log on to m.channelstv.com to watch us on your mobile device or download the Channels TV app for Android, iOS and Windows devices from their respective stores. The Channels TV and Channels 24 app will give you access to news and updates. You'll also have access to the Eyewitness feature with which you can share those pictures, videos or news of happenings around you. Just install the app, then tap and swipe to reveal the menu, and then follow the instructions. The Minister of State for Petroleum is insisting that there are no plans by government to increase the pump price of fuel from the approved 145 naira per litre. He says the stories making the rounds are mere speculations and that government will not fail to sanction any petroleum marketer selling above the fixed price.
For over 2 weeks, Nigerians across the 36 states of the Federation have had to queue for long hours to get petrol at filling stations, making the Christmas and New Year festivities bleak for many. In a bid to reduce the hardship, officials of the Department of Petroleum Resources and the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation began touring petrol stations to enforce compliance with the official pump price of fuel. At some stations where marketers were found selling above the approved pump price of 145 naira or hoarding the product, DPR officials forced them to dispense petrol at no cost to customers. Then the Senate waded into the matter, summoning the Minister of State for Petroleum and the NNPC GMD, among others, to an investigative hearing on the matter.
Invited guests.
At the hearing organized by the Senate Committee on Petroleum Downstream, the Minister of State for Petroleum, Dr. Kachikwu, put forward his proposal to address the crisis.
One mechanism would be to look at working with CBN in terms of a fixed exchange rate mechanism that enables them to stay at 145 sales at the pump price. If we do that, then they can import without the issue of price differences, and we can modulate that as the exchange rates and prices internationally move up. That's one. Second is we're also looking at a tax inversion. These individuals pay taxes. Is there a possibility, for example, to capture some of the tax they pay to account for some of the differential in importation that they would have before they pay their taxes? So it becomes basically a cost of business. We're looking at that. We're also looking at the potential, for example, of whether you could theoretically respect the 145 price and have a plural pricing system. So NNPC and all its stations and all its affiliates, about 400 stations all over the country, sell at the 145 so that the subsidy regime is respected. The pricing of 145 is respected. But at the same time, the private marketers are able to bring in their product at their own cost and sell.
Barely a day after, Dr. Kachikwu explains that his proposal does not imply that there would be an increase in the pump price of fuel.
We are not increasing price from 145 naira. The essence of our meeting yesterday and the essence of the committee's meeting still going on, which began a few days ago, is to find mechanisms to ensure that queues do not come back to Nigeria, that there's a wetting of all the stations so there's product available every time for Nigerians, that private marketers who had pulled out of participation, that will deal with their problems so that they can participate effectively in the supply of refined petroleum products in the country.
The issue of petroleum pricing has generated heated debates in recent times, and the position of the federal government on the matter appears to cast a shadow over how this matter will be resolved. Nigerians will, however, be watching to see how it pans out in the coming days.
The federal government may have cleared the air on a possible hike in the price of petrol, but the issue surrounding subsidy on the product still generates controversy. An economist, Mr. Bismarck Rewane, believes government should come clean on the details of how it has managed the subsidy and stop hiding from the truth. Mr. Rewane also believes that the reality of the situation demands some very creative measures which the subsidy regime might help to resolve, but the government needs to handle it with transparency. He was a guest on our political program, Politics Today.
Say there's no imminent price hike because it is suicidal. The minimum wage was determined in 2010 at 18,000 naira, which was $200 at that time. It is barely $40 today. If you increase the price of petrol, which is a subsidized, price today, you'll be imposing a lot more hardship on the people. The government cannot afford it. It's not politically expedient. It is economically intolerable. More than that. So what the government has to do is to come out clean and say, look, this is the amount of subsidy we are paying. This is how we have to do it because the people have to be carried along. It is not possible at this point in time to have a subsidiless petrol price because it's so critical. It's social infrastructure. So we have to do that and come out clean.
And amidst all the speculations about possible increases in the pump price of petrol, the opposition People's Democratic Party has a message for the federal government. The party is asking the All Progressives Congress-led government not to even contemplate the decision at all because it will be totally rejected by Nigerians. In a statement, the party says, quote, investigations have shown that the federal government has been lying to Nigerians on oil-related issues while using the NNPC to bandy figures with intentions to arrive at the APC's predetermined agenda to increase the price of fuel, end of quote. It states further that the lingering fuel scarcity is only a ploy by the APC to justify the intended hike of petroleum prices. The PDP also criticized the payment of subsidy on fuel by the NNPC, but wonders why Nigerians are not told who the beneficiaries are, as well as the amount involved. Now let's take a further look at this issue, and for that I'm being joined here in the studios by the chairman of the Depot and Petroleum Products Marketers Association of Nigeria, DAPMAN, Mr. Dapo Abiodun. Thank you so much for joining us on the news.
Thank you.
Now, you were at the meeting between the presidency and the marketers. You were at the committee meeting, which was the fallout of that, and then you were at the Senate hearing on this issue. What exactly is the outcome? What are we expecting?
Thank you very much for having me on this program. I think that it's important for us to understand what gave rise to the problem, and that's been told in many ways. Sometime towards the end of fourth quarter 2017, the price of crude went as high as $60. This made it impossible for marketers to continue to import petrol as we had originally done from January till about October. You'll recall that in 2016, when we did a partial deregulation, we did it based on a crude price of about $40 per barrel. And that price modulation was done such that at an exchange rate of about 285 naira to the dollar. And that gave us a price of about 140 to 145 naira per liter. And nobody quite envisaged that crude prices would go beyond that bandwidth. Unfortunately, because of issues outside the control of Nigeria, hurricane here and there, a pipeline busting in Libya, and so on and so forth, crude went to that price. And what immediately happened was marketers like us, and major marketers could no longer import, land and retail at 145. So we had to stop importing. That now meant that the supply of last resort, NNPC, had to pick up, that gap.
Yes.
That happened in October, and picking up the gap is a logistic nightmare. It was a surprise to everyone. That might have led to some form of gap in supply. In the first part of December, Peganson called a strike. They sent notices around. The rumor mill was agog. And even though the strike was just for one day, it was enough to cause panic buying. So all these cumulatively caused what you saw in December. Particularly also, December traditionally, Nigerians consume more fuel because they are traveling. So if we're consuming about 30,000 liters a day before, in December we'd consume about probably 45,000 liters a day. So it was chaotic. But I want to say that in the immediate term, that problem is being nipped in the bud by NNPC. And I also want to confirm that the 145 price will remain. As Mr. Rewani said, it will be inappropriate for the government to burden Nigerians with any price higher than 145 at this time. Now, what needs to be done is marketers need to begin to import again. Because traditionally, marketers would import about 70% of the volumes, and NNPC would do 30%. Now it's a reverse. NNPC is doing about 99%. And of course, obviously, NNPC is not quite prepared. They are not geared up. They are not designed to do that much volume. So, you know, we are the ones that can do that. Unfortunately, the only variable within our control, which is the exchange rate, would not allow us to import and land and sell at 145. From what we did yesterday, it would take for us to have Forex at 240 to be able to land and sell at 145.
Well, was this one of those things that came out of the meeting?
Well, it was being discussed as one of the options.
Because what we hear is that there's an 18-month emergency period, and people wonder what that means.
No. See, this is one of the things.
In that 18 months?
No, this is one of the things that press distort. When the minister mentioned 18 months, he was talking about different rollout plans, which included the refinery process. One of the solutions that we need that would give us a permanent solution to this is when we have our refineries in place. There is a program in which our refineries will be rehabilitated. It's an ongoing program. And what the minister said was, the completion of this we may not see for another 18 months. That is a refinery, not the issue of fuel. It's been nipped in the bud. This will end in another week or so. This will be history.
And we would still be getting fuel at the pumps right across Nigeria at 145.
Nigerians will be getting fuel at 145. Whether the federal government will decide to appropriate for subsidy, or whether they will decide to sell Forex to marketers at 240, something will give, but the fact will remains is that Nigerians will buy fuel at 145 at the pumps.
Now, how long, if you take a broad view, what you've talked about now are in the short run. Yes. That is because of the current crisis which is on the ground.
Yes.
But if you take a look at it in the longer term,
yes.
If oil prices go beyond $60,
correct,
maybe as far as 70, 80, on one hand, the government earns more money from the sale of crude.
Yes.
But then on the other hand, we are back to this issue of subsidy.
Correct.
It becomes bigger if we are to maintain the current price.
Yes.
Is that sustainable?
Well, it's like a chicken and egg situation. If crude prices continue to rally, unfortunately, we would either have to appropriate for subsidy or there will be Forex subsidy. The truth is that at some point in time, we're going to have to deregulate. Because at the present time, every neighboring country of ours is selling fuel at about $1 per liter, which means there would be illegal export of fuel across our borders, no matter what you do. Borders in the north are not even, there are no physical borders. So that would mean that we will have to continue to provide, to be subsidizing to our neighbors. So long term, we're looking at refineries being in place, we're looking at Dangote refinery, we're looking at the 4 refineries being back on stream. Those refineries themselves, the economics that will make them succeed, they can only succeed if the industry is fully deregulated.
Now, as a final point, one of the suggestions the minister made at the Senate hearing was the issue of, well, maybe the NNPC, which is government-owned, could continue selling fuel at 145 naira later, but the private marketers, independent marketers like yourselves and others, could go import, and they would not be restricted by the 145 band anymore. They could sell at a price that makes it profitable for them. Is that an option that is viable?
Well, it's an option that we all thought of, and the idea behind that was, yes, there will still be a subsidy, but that subsidy will be managed. It will be petrol being made available at NNPC retail stations at 145, but then people like us would go out to the market, would bring our fuel in, and would sell at cost plus margin.
Right.
It is being looked at, but I'm not sure how viable an option that would be. I think eventually we'd have to look at how to ensure that we have things in place, we have palliatives in place for the Nigerian masses. Because the worry is that once you increase the price of fuel, it has a snowball effect, yes, in the economy. Transportation, food prices. But by the time we have the palliatives in place and planned, where the rail is working and buses are there and things like that are in place, then the effect will not be as drastic as it should be on the common man. So I think long term, like I said, you want a refinery to work. Bear in mind that a refinery being in Nigeria doesn't necessarily mean that fuel will be that much cheaper. It just means that that much freight from Europe to here will not be there. That company will not be there.
Cost, yes.
But at the same time, what the refinery does is it takes crude, it processes at the processing cost, and then it churns out refined products. The cost of refined products is sold on Platt, which is an international benchmark. It is.
It's at that point that I'm going to have to cut in and say thank you very much. We've completely run out of time.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Dapo Abiodun is the chairman of the Depot and Petroleum Products Marketers Association of Nigeria. Thank you very much for joining us on the News at 10. When the News at 10 returns, Naira expected to firm against the dollar at the investors' forex window as financial markets get set to resume full trading next week. That will be on the business news. Please join us again.